On today's show,
So students who are Title I students or maybe seen as behavioral issues or the students that they say are level one students, those are the ones that I feel like a lot of times get kind of passed over. And those are also the ones that if you get them to believe just a little bit in themselves, they are just going, it's like the sky's the limit. It's like there's, how they say, they're starting from the bottom.
Yeah.
So there's no place that they can go but up.
Welcome to Education Today. I'm your host, Solanke. I spent 15 years in the secondary classroom teaching English, reading, and social studies. I've also been on the other side as a parent of 3 children who have completed the formal schooling years of kindergarten through 12th grade and are now in the college and career stage. Now I'm here to have conversations with teachers, administrators, school staff, students, and parents about all things education. Join me as I cover current topics in education from preschool through to college, career, and beyond. So on today's show, our topic is working with at-risk young people and especially at-risk minority students. My guest today is Debby Guice. She is a math and sometimes science teacher in Hillsborough County Public Schools. Welcome, Debby.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for being here. How many years have you been teaching and what subjects have you taught?
Oh, I actually started teaching back in, I think it was like 2007.
Oh,
2007.
for some reason I thought it was longer than that. So you and I started around the same time. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so this was actually, teaching was my second career because I actually started out working in a lab.
That's right. You were a chemist or something.
Yeah, so this is career number 2.
Oh, okay.
So I started that in 2007, and I actually started at Wharton High School.
Yeah.
And some of the subjects I've taught, I've actually, because I teach, I'm certified with math and science.
Yes.
So I've done pretty much all math, all levels of math, from intensive all the way up to pre-calculus, calculus.
Oh, wow.
With the science, I've done, well, of course, the physical sciences like physics, physical science, chemistry, earth, space science. I've done marine science.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So those, I kind of tend to stay away from like the biologies. I don't really care for those.
That's a
the
good
life
one.
Sciences. Biology, really?
That's the science for English majors like me.
And see, that's probably why. Because I like numbers.
Yeah.
So that's why I like the chemistry and the physics. And well, physical science is a mixture of chemistry and physics. So that one's perfect.
So have you mainly taught secondary?
Yes.
Okay.
Secondary. I do secondary.
Yeah.
Yes. High school is my preference.
Yeah. And you come from a legacy of teachers and a legacy of people who have worked to uplift minority students and just young people in general. Is that correct?
Yes, my both my parents were educators, just various levels. My dad, well, they were both, of course, classroom teachers. My dad was like a dean coach at one point. I think he might have even been like an assistant principal. So just all different levels, not just my parents, but then also my extended family, like my mother's siblings, their children, my dad's siblings and their children.
Yeah.
So we're just like a complete family of educators.
Yeah.
And it's all different levels
Yeah.
in education.
Yeah. It's amazing. So
Thank you.
I've known you for over 10 years actually. And during the time that I've known you, since 2012. So,
okay.
Yeah. So during the time that I've known you, you've taught in what I would call traditional high schools. But notice that you all often, not often, you always go back to what we call in Florida charter schools. But you seem to be drawn towards the charter schools where, for example, the one you teach at right now is a school where students from my traditional high school who perhaps didn't do well in a traditional setting would go to where you teach now to be able to attain their high school diploma. So it seems like you seem to be drawn towards working with at-risk youth. Is that correct?
Yes, That's very correct. Yes. Say at risk, Title I students, and that's at like any school.
Yeah.
Because looking back on it, I believe probably the majority of the schools where I've been have been Title I schools.
Hmm.
So yes.
So why do you make this choice?
Okay, so when I was in school, I was the student. Um, I had a difficult time,
Hmm.
not necessarily because of what I felt, nothing of my doing, but I was always the target of adults.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I always thought about, when I made the decision to go into education is I never want a student to feel the way I felt.
Yeah.
And too many times you see teachers that for whatever reason, they aren't necessarily as kind to the students.
Yeah.
So students who are um, Title I students or maybe seen as behavioral issues or the students that they say are level 1
Hmm.
students, those are the ones that I feel like a lot of times get kind of passed over.
Yeah.
So those are also the ones that if you get them to believe just a little bit in themselves,
Hmm.
they are just going. It's like the sky's the limit because they have no. It's like there's how they say they're starting from the bottom,
Yeah.
so there's no place that they can go but up.
Yeah.
So, and it's really great to see when you have a student like that. And I'm at, like you mentioned, a non-traditional high school. So a lot of times I have the student that'll come in and say, "Oh, this teacher, this assistant principal, this guidance counselor said that I was never going to make it. I was never going to
Hmm.
graduate. So I shouldn't even try."
Yeah.
And it's really amazing to get that student to actually believe in him or herself
Hmm.
and just turn it around completely around and get a standard high school diploma.
Yeah. So how do we get those students to believe in themselves?
It's well, of course, it doesn't happen overnight
Yeah.
because typically with those students, that kind of mentality has been instilled in them
Yeah.
from a very young age.
Hmm.
And if you're believing at that young age that you can't achieve more, then that's where you're going to stay.
Yeah.
So it's like a constant, you have to give them things that they can do to kind of lift themselves up.
Hmm.
Like it may be something like one thing that I like to do with my students is I'll tell them when they wake up in the morning, you get up when you go into your bathroom to brush your teeth. If there's a mirror in there, glass window, whatever, something where you can see your reflection,
Hmm.
look at yourself and you need to say, I am a beautiful person. I am going to have a great day and I'm going
Yeah.
to learn as much as I can. Something that'll get them
Hmm.
excited, something that'll get them believing in themselves. And of course, the first few times they do it, they're not gonna believe it. But it's like the more they say it, the more their heart, their head will start to believe that.
Yeah.
And it's like once they start believing it, it's no place but up from there.
Yeah. The
So
positive affirmations.
positive
Yeah.
affirmations, just little things, explaining things to them. I like math because there's so many people that have an anxiety towards math.
Yeah.
You hear so many people, and I say people
That's
because
me.
it's see the young student, and it's also the adult
Hmm.
that'll say, "Oh, I hate math. I hate numbers," and typically that's because someone
Hmm.
somewhere down the line, some teacher that they had with math, either they struggled because they didn't really understand the concepts, or maybe they didn't really know how to teach it.
Yeah.
Because just because you know a subject doesn't mean that you know how to teach it.
Yeah. True.
Sometimes there are even just like personality issues. I don't feel like every teacher can teach every
Yeah.
student. So it's like you have to um figure that out, find
Yeah.
out what it is. But typically, if you have someone that says, "Oh, I hate math," or "I struggle with math," or math sucks is what I hear a lot of the students say. Then that's the case, and it's like some type of anxiety. You have to
Yeah.
usually with those students, you have to start really small with them.
Yeah.
So it's like when they see little achievement, then they kind of start to see the possibilities, and then it'll open up their mind. Because
Yeah.
what's that? You have to get that mind open, and I know there's a saying that your mind is like a parachute. It
Yeah.
doesn't work unless it's open.
Yeah.
That so you have to do like little, like small accomplishments to get them, just get them going,
Yeah.
like a jump start.
Yeah. I think another issue that a lot of students struggle with math is the real world application. What am I doing this for?
Right.
I'm never going to use this. As a teacher, how do you get them to see that?
Oh, because they use algebra every day, and the
Yeah.
students come in. Oh, I'm never gonna use that. You use algebra every day, and like, no, I don't. Yeah, you do. How am I using algebra? Well, algebra is all about unknowns.
Yeah.
So if you've ever wanted, and I'll say to them, because a lot of them are into shoes, both the boys and the girls. And I say, have you ever wanted a pair of Jordans?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, miss, everybody like those, the new whatever the number is that's
Yeah.
out now. And I say, okay, how much is it? Or how much is a pair? And I'll usually have a student in there who has a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, hey, okay, so you got a job. Let's say you're making $10 an hour, right? The brand Jordans cost $250. If you're making $10 an hour, how many hours do you have to work to get the Jordan?
Yeah.
And they'll most of the time, if you say money to them, they got it just like that.
Oh.
Like they don't even think about it. And then I say that was algebra.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Really? And then it's like that. Once you convert everything for them, that's another trick that I do. I'll use money. When you convert it, if you have math
Uh-huh.
problems, if you change it to money,
Oh.
the majority of students seem to get it.
Yeah. Oh,
And I'm
that's a
like,
good
how do
trick.
you get it with money and you can't get it when it's something about the dollar?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
That's true. You see, if you have a student who attends church and tithes 10%, but they're not good at math, they understand 10%, 5%, 20% is double the 10%. They understand that.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. So, you've worked with at-risk populations for a long time now. What are some of
Uh-huh.
your frustrations with the system and the way that it serves or doesn't serve at-risk students, especially minority students?
Well, the frustration is because I feel like the at-risk student has been discarded.
Oh, yeah,
So yeah, it's really sad. And
yeah,
that's even, I feel like that even with the traditional and non-traditional schools.
yeah,
And I've worked at different the different levels of schools with different levels of students.
yeah,
And there's always an assumption, like a general assumption, that when you have the at-risk student, that they're going to be trouble.
yeah,
And one of the things that I really, really dislike is sometimes teachers will sit and discuss a student,
uh-huh,
especially when it comes to planning for the next year, the
yeah,
upcoming year.
yeah,
They'll sit and discuss the student.
mm-hmm,
I don't ever do that because my thing is your experience with the
yeah,
student is going to be different than mine
mm-hmm,
because I could possibly relate to the student differently
mm-hmm,
than you did.
yeah,
So I don't want to use your experiences to color my opinion of the student before he or she can even make it into the room.
yeah. Plus, sometimes they even change and mature over the summer, you know?
They will change and mature over the summer depending
Yeah,
on what happens, depend on the situations that they're in, experiences over the summer. In the summer, the summer is, I mean, even though it's like 2.5 months, that is a really long time when you're
mm-hmm,
talking about high school students
yeah,
or just students in
yeah,
general. So I always try to base my opinion of the student on my interaction and not
yeah.
anyone else's.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one of the things that, like, okay, so with students in school, the the cumulative folder
Mhm.
basically has everything in it.
Yeah.
So everything, discipline record, and I feel like that should be sealed.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the teachers will access that. And if they have a student that has like this many referrals and they're coming to class, oh no, I don't want that student in my class. Well, there may have been an issue. There may have been a personality
Yeah.
conflict.
Mhm.
And you can't just assume that just because it's an adult, the adult is going to always, one, behave like the adult, and two, do what he or she needs to do to help the student. So you
Yeah.
can't always assume that.
Yeah.
So I wish that they would like make it impossible for teachers to even have access to that information.
Yeah. I
So,
guess everyone deserves a fresh start each school year, right?
right. I
Teachers
feel
too.
right.
Yeah.
And I actually feel like everyone deserves a fresh start every day.
Yeah.
Because I've had students, and that's the great thing about the at-risk student, because typically those are the ones that are so respectful.
Mhm.
Like, sure, they have the bad days, and I actually have an example of two students. I had a boy and a girl in my class last week. Both of them were having really bad days, and I try not to take things personally because I
Mhm.
do understand. You know,
Yeah.
kids, we all. I mean, I have days that aren't as great as I'd like. So, I understand, they a little off today, having a difficult day, kind of
Uh-huh.
struggling. And, they spoke to me so disrespectfully, the two students.
Yeah.
And both of them came the very next day and apologized.
Oh. Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, every day is a fresh start for
Yeah.
me.
That's good. I'm sorry, miss. I'm sorry.
Hmm. Right,
That's all right.
right.
It's all right.
Miss, I know I came in here yesterday. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's funny.
Right.
It's funny when they go right back and do it again,
Yeah,
and then go back and apologize again.
they do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
And I understand that. And, I mean, I get it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, they're kids at the end of the day, right?
right,
Yeah. Learning to be
right,
adults, but not adults yet. So,
right.
so as a district, and then as teachers individually, how can we do better by this population, by our at-risk students?
Okay. So I am a teacher, but my ultimate job would be, what I would like to do is I would love to mentor
Oh,
teachers,
yeah.
not just
You would
new
be great at
teachers.
that. You would be really
Oh,
good.
thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. But I would love to mentor not just the new teachers, but also like the current teachers on how to deal with at-risk students. I
Yeah.
actually, a few years ago, when I was at, uh, it was a sister school to where I am right now.
Mhm.
I had a professional development, a training class that I did with those teachers because I noticed that the teachers weren't making that connection
With the
with the
students.
students.
Okay.
Right. So, and there was a disconnect there.
Mhm.
So it was another that member of the staff there, the enrollment specialist at that school. And I did this professional development for everyone, all of the teachers there, everyone on the staff, so they can just better understand the students.
Yeah.
And part of that, what we did was we had a survey that we gave to the students and a
Mhm.
survey that we gave to the staff.
Yeah.
And then after we got the result from the students, of course, we shared those results with the
Yeah.
staff. And they were just like, majority of them were completely oblivious to what was going on and how like the students felt
Mhm.
about certain things.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was like, like, I think one of the questions on there was, okay, you're walking down the sidewalk and at the next street, you see a police car pull up and stop.
Mhm.
and he turns to you and gets out and starts walking towards you, what do?
Run.
The majority of the students either said run, get down on the ground, put their
Yeah.
hands up. You know, it was things like that. And
Yeah.
even like the run response, the staff was like, why would you run if you haven't done anything wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, but you don't understand it, because
Yeah.
it's not that the students have done
Yeah.
something wrong, but it's the mentality.
Yeah.
So just, getting them to connect.
Yeah.
And that's why I said that's one thing that I would absolutely love to do, is to mentor those teachers, those all of the educators at different level on
Yeah.
how to relate to, how to interact with at-risk students, because
Yeah.
there is a difference.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
Yeah.
definite difference.
Yeah. What do you mean that there's a difference between
A
what?
difference between the at-risk student and like because, okay, so typically when people say at-risk students,
Mm-hmm.
the mindset is to think about the students that are like the level ones,
Yes.
the level 1 students, level 2 students,
Mm-hmm.
or the students that come from a not so safe neighborhood.
Yeah.
So there's like a stereotype
Mm-hmm.
about that.
But in actual fact, when we say at risk, we mean at risk of not graduating. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like I said, a lot of times people will look at, they'll just look at one thing and stereotype the
Yeah.
entire,
Yeah.
the whole, everyone's bad. It's just a
Yeah.
whole bad group.
Yeah. So I think that you would be a fantastic teacher mentor.
Thank you.
You'd be a great teacher mentor to
Mhm.
teachers teaching students who are at risk of not graduating, or
Mhm.
students in Title I schools, etc.
Mhm.
And I think that Hillsborough County Public Schools should create a position, that specific position for you and other teachers like you to do that job.
Mhm.
So hopefully in the future they will create, if it doesn't already exist, they will create a position like that, because it's very much needed.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really is. It
Yeah.
really is. Because I even think about like my class versus like adjacent classrooms,
Mm-hmm.
and how they are, like the teachers with how the teachers are with their students in their classes.
Yeah.
And just thinking about that now, just be thinking, oh, there's so many things that I can give you, so many things that I can share with you that just make it a little bit easier for you.
Yeah. Hopefully in the future. From my mouth to God's ears, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Look, and hopefully it'll be a 6-figure paying
Yay.
job.
Yeah. That would be amazing. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today to talk about your
Not a
experience
problem.
working with at-risk students.
Thank you.
It's been great having you on the show, and I look forward to talking to you again about another topic, another hot topic
Oh,
in education.
yes. Just let me know.
All right. Thank you so much to my guest, Debby Guice.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Education Today. We'll be back next time with more current topics on all things education. In the meantime, you can email any questions or comments you have about the show to edtodaypodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please hit the subscribe button on whichever platform you are listening so we can continue to expand our reach. We are listener supported, so if you're able to make a small monthly donation, you can do so by clicking the Support This Podcast link at the bottom of the show notes. Check out my blog for more about my experiences as a classroom teacher at medium.com/@SOCO. That's medium.com/@SOHKOR. You can also find me on Instagram at SOCO_rights. That's SOHKOR_rights. See you next time, and thank you again for listening.